Welcome, everyone, to episode 12 of another Jags podcast. Before we get started, even with welcoming our cast of characters tonight, we want to say again, this is the number one off-season Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Number one. And I'm going to go out on a limb, gentlemen, and I'm just going to say it now, that when the season starts, we are going to be the number one in-season Jaguars podcast as well. What do you think about that?
Well, if you look at the analytics, I mean, we're number one by far in the offseason. So
if PFF had a...
we're the number one PFF podcast.
We're the number one PFF podcast.
For sure.
But yeah, you know, we love the Jags. We're going to keep talking about them in May, June, July, all the way up to kickoff in September. Tonight we have with us, as always, Joey. Joey, how you doing?
I'm doing good, as always.
Good. Jason?
I'm doing amazing.
You have a snazzy hat on. It's got some crazy decorations.
Thank you.
It's like, I wanted to ask, but I didn't want to be
Los Angeles Football Club. I'm a huge fan.
Oh.
Yeah, huge fan.
Los Angeles Football Club.
My favorite player is David Beckham.
All right. I don't think he's on the team anymore.
That was like 4 years ago. But when that hat came out, definitely was
No,
on
it's
the
not
team.
even the Galaxy. It's LAFC.
Yeah, I actually watched them
team.
play on Saturday. Believe it or not, I watched a little bit of an MLS game. It was pretty good.
I saw Beckham in a suit at the royal wedding, and he looked tight. Like
Joey
always.
just had to get royal wedding talk.
I know,
had to throw it in there
do
He
somewhere.
had to. It only
Had
took
to.
him a couple minutes, and he had to.
And that's it. And we're done. Robert, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing amazing.
Good. All right. So tonight we're going to be talking about a few different things. We're going to be talking about Leonard Fournette making an appearance on NFL Network's Top 100. We're talking about the start of OTAs, which began today. And then we're going to be dissecting throughout the offseason. We're going to be dissecting position groups and kind of just looking at them and them alone and seeing strengths and weaknesses and all that good stuff. And so tonight we're going to be talking about the secondary, the defense for the Jaguars. But before we get into all that talk, as always, we want to remind you that we are on Twitter at Another Jags Pod. We're on Facebook and Instagram at Another Jags Podcast. Apparently there's some stuff on Reddit happening. Jason,
we're posting them all to Reddit. So if you're a Reddit user on our Jaguars, make sure to shoot us your questions in the comments, stuff like that. We'd love to answer your questions or give us your feedback.
Yeah, we've got some good feedback so far from it, so thank you for that already. Also, you can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, all the podcasting platforms. And again, listen, reach out to us. We'd love to answer some questions that you have or talk about some things that you'd like to hear discussed. This is a Jaguar fan show, and you are fans as well, so we want to include you in it. But without any further ado, let's talk about Leonard Fournette. Gentlemen, he landed at number 58 on the NFL Network's Top 100. Initial thoughts, what do you think? Too high, too low, just right? Joey, what do you think?
I mean, personally, I think too high. He had a pretty good rookie year, but I wouldn't put him in the top 60 in the league. I mean, overall players, too high for me.
You know, we had this argument last night with some friends watching it, the rerun of it. Too high meaning like too high on the list or too high?
What does too high mean?
Yeah, what does too high mean? It could be like too high of a number, or it could be like too high.
Oh, I apologize.
You know what I mean?
No, I think he should, I think
it's a
he's
Seinfeld
probably
episode.
one of the top. I think he's probably one of the top 100 players in the league, but I don't think he should have been ranked that well.
Okay, you think maybe okay? So
Like
where
80 to 90, maybe. I
Okay.
think I would put him there. I think he should be on the list, but man, I mean, in the 50s, that's strong.
It was voted on by the players.
Sure.
So this is what the players think. It's not really like, writers or things like that. So that's pretty respectable that I think, because remember, these are the guys that have to tackle him, and it's funny, all the clips talked about how it's like tackling this guy sucks. He's a locomotive of steam, and they brought up the point that he had the two fastest runs in the NFL in back-to-back weeks at 22 miles per hour and 21 miles per hour, which is insane considering he's a back that runs through you.
So, Jason, having said that, what do you think? 58? Too high or too low?
I think next year he will be higher than that, but I think this year it was a little too high considering he was injured, missed a game from suspension, and things like that.
Okay. So, again, but you're saying too high in the same way Joey is.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair.
Yeah, for the sake of the discussion, we're saying too high means he should have been somewhere in the 60s, 70s, or 80s, not in the 50s or lower. Okay. So, I got it. All right. Just make sure we all
When you
understand
start
what that
thinking about it,
means.
it's confusing.
I know, it is very confusing. Robert, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think it's probably a little too high, but I think it's definitely the players probably giving a little bit of props that how well he did last year, even though he got a little hurt, he was suspended a game. I think next year, like Jason said, he'll be ranked higher, hopefully, but based off of play, I think it was definitely a little too high.
I think he's right where he needs to be, honestly. I think 58 it's a good number. It's on the other side of, that top 50. The thing about Fournette, to me, with how he plays, is there's so much more to how he affects a game than just what's in his numbers, carries, yards, and all that stuff, because a 2-yard run from Leonard Fournette is a totally different run than a 2-yard run from Yeldon, Corey Grant, or a majority of the running backs in the NFL. So, like we've already said, guys don't like tackling him. It's hard to tackle him, and I think he gives an edge to your offense as well. He gives a spark. He gives a kind of a swagger. Whether players determine that or not when they're voting, I don't know. But man, I'm glad we got him. I'm glad we got him on our team because I agree with Jason. I think next year is going to be even better for him. Not that there's a huge learning curve for the running back position from college to NFL, but just with the improved offensive line, with the improved Blake Bortles, the defense continuing to do what it's going to do, I just see him having an even better year.
I mean, how impressive was it that 22 miles per hour run was in the fourth quarter? Like, it wasn't like to open the game,
right?
Like the run against the Rams was when he hit 21 miles per hour. Against the Steelers, it was the fourth quarter, and he hit the fastest speed recorded on the football field all season.
By a guy, if you looked at him, you would not think in a million years that he would be the guy that ran the fastest of the entire season by any player in the league. I mean, that guy's a monster.
Think about guys like Le'Veon Bell or Alvin Kamara or Shady McCoy. These are the guys,
right,
that you think would be hitting the top end speeds, not some bruiser Leonard Fournette, which is crazy. All right, I'll throw a question at you guys. Do you think Jalen Ramsey ends up in the top 10 of the 100? Because we did see Xavier Rhodes and this Chargers corner
Hayward.
They're already on the list, and they were considered to be pretty good. The next best corner is probably in the NFL. So do you think Jalen makes the top 10?
I think it's an absolute lock for the top 20 with it being player
That's not what I asked.
No,
I think he's got a shot in the top 10, man.
It seems based on where Rhodes and Hayward were placed that they're just not valuing corners that high because those are both excellent cornerbacks.
Yeah, but they don't have the talk. They don't have the swagger that he does.
Yeah, that's true.
And if players are voting, I mean, they notice that. They like that. They read the Twitter. They see the trash talk. They see him back it up. They see how he absolutely just destroys mentally other receivers. I think that's going to play into it.
I hear you. Listen, I'm going to save my true Jalen Ramsey thoughts for our discussion on the secondary. I want to leave it. I'm going to tease it a little bit and not share it now.
But if you had to guess where he goes in the top 100, where would you guess?
16.
Oh, dang it. I was going to say 16. I'm going to go 15. I'm going to go one over.
I'm going to say 10. I think he's going to go 10.
Listen, he, in my opinion, he deserves to be in the top 10. I think he's a top 10 player in the entire league. But quarterbacks are going to fill the top 10, and so are, defensive ends. Yeah, so I just don't, it's not him. It's just where they value the corner. But if you talk to Calais Campbell or heard any of his interviews last year when he had a sack in a game or multiple sacks, the first thing he did was credit our secondary. And so Jalen makes them better. So, but just based on the value of the position, I don't think he makes it. Should he? Absolutely, but I'll just say no.
I mean, I love the top 100 list. I mean, I think it's really cool. But, I mean, an off-season player, I mean, how much effort, time, and thought do you really think those guys put into it when they're voting for it? Or are they even the ones filling it out? Are they maybe filling out the top 10, handing it to their person and say, hey, what, you finish the list? I mean, what do you guys think there?
I agree 100%. I don't think they're putting much time into it whatsoever. Unless they see a guy that they like on there, they might bump him up. But here's the thing to me about the whole top 100. First of all, the purpose of it is for guys like us to talk about it in the offseason when there's not. It drives the sport, which is smart. So I don't blame them for doing it at all. But to try and rank NFL players in a 100 list is impossible because you have 22 players on each side of the ball that you're trying to rank. How do you rank a right guard and a safety? You know what I mean? How do you value which one more than the other? So it's almost an impossible task to begin with, but it's fodder for the offseason, and so it's fun to do.
You pretty much have to do it like a NFL roster, like a 52-man roster to really kind of start boiling it down. But like you said, I mean, if you're doing it top 100, you can have 4 quarterbacks as 4 top people, and
they won't be.
But I'm just saying you can't. They don't.
Tom
but
Brady's
you
been
could.
number 1, but I mean, I think Aaron Donald's been number 2. Wasn't Sherman pretty high? I think Sherman was a top 10 player.
I'm sure he was. And I don't know if that was last. I doubt it was last year, but when in Seattle's heyday. But that's the thing. The Jaguars are just now. There's a combination of market size, success in terms of your team winning, and then you being good at your position. Jalen obviously is the best at his position. We're still a small market, so they're not going to give Jacksonville a lot of love based on already where Ngakoue and Telvin Smith were. I think both of them should have been lower, and I mean that in a good way. All right, not higher, lower.
It's like golf.
I think, right? I'm still kind of confused on that. Yeah, so we'll see. I mean,
I think the bottom line with it, though, is like 2 years ago, we would never even been having this discussion because were there any in the top 100 from the Jags?
I think we got
Malik was in it
before he was on the Jags, wasn't he?
Yeah, he had signed with them. So Jags were crediting it. We got a Jaguar, but he had nothing that he had done was with the Jags. It was all
So,
with Denver.
this year we're talking how many of them are going to be ranked, and are they high enough, low enough, which is awesome.
Which is awesome.
Right. I mean, how many we're going to end up with? I mean, if we take a second and count, we have Campbell for sure, Boye for sure, Ramsey for sure. Does Malik get it this time?
Malik, I think, gets it.
Yeah.
Norwell gets it there.
Do we count? No, let's say just
okay, that played with us.
But played with us last year. Jags that were on the team last year. Is that it? Are we missing anybody?
We've already got Telvin.
We already got Telvin, Yannick, and
Fournette.
Yeah.
So that leaves Campbell, Malik,
Tommy
Bouye, and Ramsey.
Bouye and Ramsey.
So 7.
7. That's strong.
Yeah.
That's almost 1 for every 10.
Yeah.
1 for every episode. That's good stuff. And I mean, hey, I'm going to throw Lambo out there. Why not?
Lambo.
No. Sorry.
No, I don't. Do they have any kickers on there at all?
Probably not.
No,
probably not.
No.
Well, they should.
Well, speaking of Boye and Ramsey, I think that's a good transition into the OTAs that took place today.
Yeah,
what do you think about that, guys? I mean,
so today, if you're not aware, today was optional training program. So you didn't have to go if you don't want to. A lot of times you see veterans skip out on it because it's just extra work they're putting on their bodies. But
let me stop you for a second because I know where you're going with that. And is it really optional though? I mean, any optional training program
they don't fine you if you don't go.
Well, they don't fine you, but it's like it's optional, but you better show up or you're going to make the list. I mean, unless you're like one of those guys like Tom Brady. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I don't really think it's optional. I think it's necessary, except for the fact they can't make it mandatory.
This is what I think about OTAs. I think for rookies it's very important. Maybe even for second-year players. After that, it's a head count. I think is what it's like. If you've ever chaperoned a field trip somewhere, and like halfway through the field trip, everyone's got to meet at a certain place. You count everybody to make sure everyone's still there. This is the NFL's version of a head count to me.
Make sure everyone's alive.
Make sure everyone's
not
alive.
In
jail. not. They're sober. Along those lines.
Yeah.
And just we want to know where you're at. We want to make sure you know what you're doing.
Nobody put on 100 pounds in the offseason type of thing.
Exactly. But other than that, I think beyond the rookies, what is Calais Campbell going to do during OTAs right now? There's no contact.
In shorts and t-shirts.
Yeah, there's no pads. They're only wearing helmets and shorts and t-shirts. So what is the offense or defensive lines going to do? To me, it's for receivers is really the only thing.
Yeah. Running backs get some good receiving work out of it. DBs cover. Does it bother you guys at all that Ramsey and Bouye didn't show up?
Yeah. I mean, I would. They haven't been in the league that long to me as of now. I mean, so I feel like they should still be out there. I mean, if this is their 5th or 6th year in, I would feel a little differently. They would be true veterans at that point in time. They proved themselves. Look, I think they're going to do great next year. I don't have any doubts about that. But at the same time, I mean, I want to see them out there. I want to see them out there with the rookies. I mean, again, they've only been in the league a couple years. So, I mean, they need to be out there still. They've proven themselves, but they haven't proven themselves as a veteran yet.
I have to agree with Robert on this one. I think with the tone the Jags are trying to set, what they set last year and what they want to continue as far as the grit and all that goes, I think it sends a message to the rest of the team if everybody's there. Do I think they're going to trail off or have any kind of impact from a play standpoint for those two? Absolutely not. They're going to be studs regardless. But I do think it sends a message. I think it's good for the younger guys to see all the older guys there. I think they should have been there. They're getting paid a lot of money, man.
I want to make this crystal clear, my opinion on them not being there. I could not care less. I think it makes no difference whatsoever. I think what we're not considering is the fact that they've probably told a lot of the players that they weren't going to be there, and the players are like, that's fine, I don't care. We're here. Jalen lives in Tennessee in the offseason, so he's probably, I have no idea. I haven't talked to him.
Well, he's probably at a basketball game like he was last year.
Yeah, exactly. So, the productivity is not going to be hindered in any way because they're not there. And I'm really reaching here, if there's any setback for me for both of them not being there, it's not for accountability or anything like that. It's to me, the receivers would benefit from it. I don't even know if they shadow a receiver on routes, because every clip I saw from the news, it was just receivers running open routes unguarded. But I think if you're a rookie, if you're DJ Chark and you see Ramsey walk in the building, that just upped the ante a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. You're gonna run a little faster. You're gonna try a little harder.
You are, but so in that aspect, not for Ramsey's sake, but for the receiver's sake, the rookie's sake, I think it might make a difference. But I don't think any of the guys in the locker room are going, I can't believe Ramsey's not here. I can't believe Boye's not here. Oh, my goodness. The gall of those guys, I'm
100% with James here. I mean, if you follow their social media accounts, they've actually been posting what they've been doing. So Ramsey is not at a basketball game. Bouye was at a basketball game, actually. Bouye was celebrating the Cavs win last night.
Good for him.
Who's ironically his cousin plays for the Celtics, which is weird, but here's something to keep it to remember, okay? Those two players were the two best players on our team last year. Across any position, across anywhere, those were our two best players last year. No matter if you go by stats, grades, anybody will tell you they were both amazing. Another thing you got to think about is Bouye trains with a guy named David Alexander. David Alexander is a Miami trainer who trains LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Victor Oladipo, and this guy posts clips of Bouye in there all the time. So I get the camaraderie part and the accountability part, but I would rather him be training with like a world-class trainer. Mm-hmm. Jalen trains with his dad in Tennessee, which is the Ramsey Training Center. And that's like nationally known. They have athletes coming in and out of there all the time. Ramsey talks about how that's the reason why he's an elite player. So if these guys have gotten to where they're at by doing what they're doing in the offseason, I don't think Ramsey was there last year in the OTAs either.
No, he wasn't.
So, I mean, don't fix what's not broken. I mean, I'm with James, man. I don't care at all. And if you're a better player for not going, don't go. That's how I feel.
I mean, there's so many big-name players across the board that aren't going. Obviously, the biggest is Tom Brady. And there might be more to that story. I really don't think there is, but there could be. Aaron Donald's not going. Julio Jones isn't going. Gronkowski's not going. I mean, it's because these guys look at it and say, to Jason's point, we will work harder not being there than if we have to be there. They don't want to have to fly back home, then have to answer some questions from the media that has nothing to do with anything at all. It's still May, for crying out loud. They'll be in mandatory minicamp starting in June. So to me, it's like, keep doing what you're doing. As long as you're out of trouble. And I'm sure I would bet the house that Jalen and Telvin have spoken. And if Telvin's okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Well, here's one. This is a Tom Brady quote from 2013. So it's even more interesting that he's not there. He's not going to be at OTAs this year. He said, "The truth is this lays the foundation for the start of training camp. And if you have a good training camp, it usually means a good start to the season. A good start to the season leads to good position entering the second half of the season. If the team that's winning all the Super Bowls, they're constantly in the AFC championship games, and that guy, I mean, obviously, again, he's not there this year, which is even more interesting. If that guy's saying that this is important, I think it's more important than we let on."
Yeah, he's getting old.
But he said that in 2013.
Yeah, exactly. He's 5 years older. He's not trying to do all that now. It's just unnecessary wear and tear and emotions. I mean, honestly, I would rather our backup DBs get more reps because we got to figure out who's going to play 3 and 4 corners.
And we'll talk about that more later.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, hey, they're getting more reps. It's a win-win for everybody.
It is. I mean, to me, I feel almost like OTAs were made by the NFL to have something on the calendar for the month of May for fans and media to be able to talk about. I mean, that's the genius of the NFL. It is the sport with the longest off season, yet it never ends. I mean, you have the Super Bowl's in February, and that same month is the Combine. Free agency begins in March. The draft is in April. So what can we do in May? I don't know. How about throw some OTAs out there? Then you have mini camp in June, training camp in July, and August is the preseason, and there you go. I think it was a marketing tool by the NFL. Just have something for us to talk about it, and lo and behold, here we are talking about it. So
when Logan Cook hitting the roof of the practice facility is news, it's just a grab for information.
Right, absolutely.
Does that impress you guys at all?
Yeah, that's high.
I've never been in there, so I can't say. But yeah, sure, why not? Yeah.
The video looked like you punted it pretty high.
Like with that being the case, I mean, a couple of things jump out at me about the OTAs because again, I really could care less as well as far as like any of that. But they do like put them on lockdown. They don't want people like sharing them. Like the media was told you can only say so much about what went on. I mean, if it's that irrelevant, why are they being that secretive about it?
That's the Bill Belichickian school of deception, I think, where it's just like the less you know, the better.
I'm good with that then.
And it's dangling the carrot,
Yeah.
It's that unknown. I think really, if you were to go and just watch, if you had a pass that let you in to the facility to watch OTAs, to me, the only position group to watch is receiver, and because you just see how fast are these guys?
Mm-hmm.
How fast are they? Do they drop a ball when they're wide open and no one's guarding them? But besides that group, and maybe quarterback to see if they can hit the receiver wide open.
I mean, high school quarterbacks can hit open receivers.
Yeah. I mean, the reports today were Blake looked great. Well, I sure hope so. I mean, give me a break. There's no one rushing him. No,
but years past, he hasn't looked all that tight. I mean, I think that was the difference. I
think this report comes out every OTAs, and it's
but it
he's
wasn't
in the
just
best shape of his life, and
it wasn't just his throwing though. I mean, he also had multiple things come out about the fact that he's the second year under the same offensive coordinator, and they said that he knows more about the offense than anybody out there right now. Like, dude spent time studying. He's done his work. Like, he's a different guy.
I feel like you had better hear good things, because if you hear something bad, then you're really in trouble. But you should expect to hear the good things.
Yeah,
and that's right. And I'll be honest, I'm happy with everything that was said about Bortles today, how he's carrying himself. He's looks extremely confident. He looks like a leader. He does know the playbook inside and out. All good things, all things that make me excited for the coming year. But at the same time, you can only read so much into that stuff when it's still May and there's no contact or anything like that.
Whatever, man. He's making the Pro Bowl. I'm reading everything into it.
Listen, I'm going to say this again. We have the whole offseason talk about all this stuff, but I'll say it right now. I expect a big year from Bortles. I'm on the Bortles bandwagon 110%.
Well, I mean, the second thing that kind of came out today was what we've talked about a couple of times is the speed of our receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they all did well at the combine. You look at how fast they run. I know they're on turf today, which I think kind of added to that a little bit, but everybody said they look like they were blazing fast.
Yeah.
Which I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's one thing you can't coach. So that's really cool to hear.
You want to hear good things coming out of OTAs. We heard a lot of good things, so that excites me. But, you kind of take it with a grain of salt at the same time.
Yep, I'm with you.
All right, we're going to take a break. That wraps up our OTAs talk. As you can tell, there's really just not a lot to talk about it, but we wanted to bring it up nonetheless. We're going to come back and really dissect our secondary, which includes Jalen Ramsey. Some more talk about him. Any podcast where we talk about Jalen Ramsey a lot is a good podcast.
Absolutely.
So we'll be right back in a couple minutes. Welcome back to another Jags podcast, the number one off-season Jaguars podcast and the soon-to-be number one in-season Jaguars podcast. Tonight, we're going to be continuing our talk on the secondary, corners, and safeties. We want to dissect this position group, as we will do all the position groups throughout the offseason. And again, before we get to that, we do want to remind you, Twitter, at Another Jags Pod. Let us know what you think. Give us some questions, some feedback. Also, Facebook and Instagram at Another Jags Podcast. And tell your friends. You can find us on iTunes and SoundCloud, all other podcasting platforms. We want to spread the word about the best team in the NFL, that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, without any further ado, guys, let's talk about the secondary of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Star-studded and a little bit of question mark. So, let's go ahead and go to Jason and give us your opening thoughts on the position group of our secondary on defense. What do you think?
Well, just to give everyone like a little background of kind of what Todd Wash, the defensive coordinator, does, and some of the verbiage we'll be using, is there's different coverages and coverage shells that defenses show, and really they all boil down to two coverage shells. One is a 1 high safety and a 2 high safety. Now within these two shells, you can run all sorts of things. You can disguise your coverages, and you can have different zones and mans within them. But really what it comes down to is you either have one safety in the middle of the field, basically playing behind the entire play, or you have two safeties splitting the field into halves, playing behind the whole play. So if we say 1 high, that could be cover 1, that could be cover 3. 2 high, it could be cover 2, could be cover 4, could be cover 6. But really it comes down to 1 high and 2 high safeties. The Jaguars base.
That was well said.
I just learned so much there.
Yeah, I'm now educated.
Well, as we talked about in our text thread, I have a fascination with secondary. I even coached a little secondary in my life. So the Jaguars base formation, meaning what they run most of the time on first down when they come out of the half, every single time, is a 1 high cover 1. Meaning Tayshaun Gibson plays about 25 yards off the line of scrimmage in the middle of the field, and then Bouye mans up on the outside, and Ramsey mans up on the outside. And then the linebackers or the nickel corner come in and man up either the tight ends or the linebackers, and they play straight man coverage.
Now, would that be like a true free safety position? Is that what
yes.
Center fielder.
Center fielder, true free safety, which Tayshaun Gibson had talked about with Gus Bradley not letting him do enough of.
I thought he, and I could be totally wrong. I thought he didn't like because he did too much of it. Like he was just camped out in no man's land all the time.
I think at the end of the season, they almost the whole secondary said that they were pretty much locked down by Bradley for not even going after interceptions. They were pretty much, you covered and that was it. You weren't allowed to go after an interception unless it just basically fell in your hands. And they pretty much all jumped on that and said they weren't happy with him about it.
So they want to be more aggressive.
Well, it's really hard to know what coaches want players to do because coaches could call something the players not do it correctly. So it's kind of hard to know when you're watching what they're doing. But from what it looked like with Gus Bradley is he was really locked into that Seattle cover 3. And basically you just line up on the outside. The corner would play a deep third, the middle safety, free safety would play the middle third, then the other corner would play a deep third. And they wouldn't disguise, they wouldn't show a cover 2, then roll into a cover 3. They just lined up pre-snap where they were going to be. With Todd Wash, they do a lot more of trickery. They'll make it look like they're playing 2 high safeties with Church. Then they'll, at the snap, they'll roll Church down into the box, and he'll play what's called a robber in the middle of the field to take away a quick slant or a quick dig, or he'll come up in the run and put 8
almost
in
like
the
an
box.
extra linebacker.
Right, exactly.
And that's kind of like a strong safety role. Is that accurate?
That would be the strong safety's role in that 1 high, that cover 1 or the cover 3. Now, if they're in the cover 2, then he plays half of the field, basically the opposite of what Tayshaun Gibson does.
Gotcha.
So just to give people an idea of what they do, the Jaguars on most plays will play just man everywhere, which you have to have amazing athletes and talent to do.
Which we do.
Which we do.
We have speed everywhere.
Which we do. But you do see that some teams take advantage of it with matchups with running backs and tight ends on linebackers, and quick outs and flares and screens we're susceptible to. And you notice that's what Pittsburgh and New England did against us in the playoffs. The only way they would really gain yards. Also, the biggest vulnerability in our cover 1 scheme is what's called a seam route. And that's where the slot or the tight end basically runs straight down the hash or straight down the seam, because that's technically a soft spot for our secondary. So the job of the linebackers is to reroute, jam, or push the receivers into the middle of the field to give the middle free safety a better shot at those seam routes. But that's why you'll see a lot of teams test the Jaguars deep down the field, because technically that's where we're vulnerable.
But the problem is with that is you go up against Ramsey or Boye and
right, or Miles Jack and Telvin is chasing you, which are fast linebackers.
Right.
So they're chasing you down the seam, which is a pretty good matchup for us. Mm-hmm. Whereas on other teams, you know, you wouldn't want your outside backer chasing a slot receiver down the field. But if they drag across the field, we have fast linebackers that can keep up with them. But that is where we're vulnerable. And so if you watch the film, that's where you'll see teams try to pick on us the most.
It is insane how fast our defense is. I mean,
it's insane.
It really is. I mean, we have the 2 fastest linebackers in the league.
Usually the trade-off is you're not as good against the run because you're not as beefy. But a guy like Paz really helped us out, and bringing a guy like Darius really helped us out against the run. But you saw that we actually had to bring in help halfway through the year because we weren't the best against the run because of maybe our lack of size.
And that was also kind of where they exploited Paz a little bit in that he switched to man. He would get burnt in the pass coverage every now and then. Because that was kind of his role, was stopping that run.
Well, back to the secondary, where do you guys see a weakness? Where we obviously have the 2 best corners in the NFL, or 2 of the best. You could argue they're the best tandem. I think they are. I think most of us probably would.
If you take this stat on those 2 guys, you're talking about A.J. Boye and Jalen Ramsey, the passer rating against A.J. Boye, he was the number 1 in the league with 36% passer rating against A.J. Boye.
Jeez.
The next person in the NFL was Jalen Ramsey at 52.1.
Wow.
Big spread.
So that's
too,
a huge. Now keep in mind, Boye was matched up against the 2 receiver, and Jalen's usually matched up against the 1, but not always. I mean, we saw Antonio Brown and Boye matchups all throughout that Steelers game. So Ramsey did follow Cooks around in that Patriots game a lot, but that's insane. 36.1 and 52.1.
Well, and I think their games are a little bit different. I think Jalen seems to want to bait the quarterback more, so he's gonna give his receiver a cushion because he thinks he can break on the ball fast enough and pick it off. So if that means giving up a 3-yard reception, which a lot of those were. I mean, he had a lot of 3 to 4 yard catches, then he would just tackle the guy out of bounds, and it was on 3rd and long or whatever. But that's a completion, so that ups the percentage. Mm-hmm. But it might sound weird to say this, but I feel like Boye may be underrated. even though everyone regards him as one of the best corners in the league, when you're
he's
playing,
paid like one of the best corners.
he's
in the league.
he's the top. He's the I think third highest corner in the NFL in terms of being paid. But with Ramsey on the other side, and he has a quieter demeanor. I think he gets overlooked a little bit by maybe the lay fan or whatever. But I mean, he was unreal last year.
Yeah,
Unreal.
I think he definitely gets overlooked. I mean, when you have someone like Jalen that talks so much, people want to get him in fights. It's hard to not get overshadowed by someone like that. Plus, everyone knows how good Ramsey is as well. So they're constantly thinking this guy's the best on the field and everything, which he very well is. But at the same time, I mean, Boye was no shrub either. I mean, he was killing it out there.
I mean, he wasn't, but he's also in like the ideal situation to where, like Jason said, he most of the time does not have to go up against a stud wide receiver. I mean, if you're an elite cornerback and or defensive back and you also get to not have to guard the best receiver, I mean, that's pretty awesome.
But I felt like he was up against one of their best receivers pretty consistently, though.
It definitely happened, but.
And we also didn't play too many teams that just had like outstanding receivers across the board anyways.
Well, we played a handful.
We played a handful, but he was up. I would say he was probably up against the number one 50% of the time.
I definitely think they're the best duo in the league.
They are, but yeah, you're right. That brings. I mean,
yeah.
Having Jalen really helps.
It does, of course. I mean, having Jalen helps every single person on the defense.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's just how good he is. I teased it earlier, and I'll just say this right now. This is my thought on Jalen Ramsey. I thought about this as we determined this is going to be the position group we were going to talk about on this episode. I started thinking about it. I said, you know what? Jalen Ramsey is my all-time favorite Jacksonville Jaguar, and I don't believe that will ever change. I don't think there's ever going to be a Jaguar that comes through the team that I'm going to like more than him. He's the best at his position, which the only time that's ever happened for the Jaguars was Tony Baselli. He came out of FSU, which for me is my favorite college team. He carries just swagger. He hits. He doesn't just cover and pick the ball off. He hits.
He hits hard.
And there's just, I don't know, everything about him, his interaction with the media, his quotes, all those things. I realized, yeah, he's my absolute favorite Jaguar, and I couldn't imagine I could like someone better in the future.
I'll forgive your Florida State love and your Freddie T. I'm so sorry that he mentioned all of that because Freddie T is definitely my favorite of all time.
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
I will put Telvin Smith and Jalen Ramsey in my top three.
Yeah, I love Ramsey. It's just a little early for me.
How can you not love him?
I mean, how can you? Seriously. And I love Freddie T, too. It's not like I have to pick a guy, but that's just like the icing on the cake.
Sure.
I love Telvin, too, for all the same reasons, but Jalen's just – he's elite. He's the elite of the elite, and he changes an entire defense. And you saw these parts coming together with when they brought in Malik kind of before everybody else, but then when they brought in Campbell, drafting Telvin, having pause already there. But it was when Jalen got there that I feel like that was that last missing piece, and he's just so insanely good. He's so fun to watch. There's not a receiver, if you look on our schedule this coming up year, that you go, oh man, what are we going to do? It's like, oh, we got Jalen, and then we have Boye. It's an amazing advantage to have. The fact that he got in AJ Green's head so fast that AJ Green got kicked out of the half before the second half. In the first half, he got in his head so hard. I mean, and Jalen got thrown out, which everyone and their brother knew that he shouldn't have.
Absolutely not.
But, I mean, for him to be able to get in a receiver of that caliber, we're not talking about a second or third guy. We're talking about the number one of the best wide receivers in the AFC and the NFL. I mean, it's unreal.
I mean, he talks almost better than he plays. He's so entertaining. I mean, he is. He's awesome. And when you talk about our secondary and you ask, like, what concerns do I have? If everybody's healthy, I mean, even with Colvin gone, I don't have a concern. But if you look at it and look at our depth chart, man, if people go down, if there's injuries, that's what scares me. Yeah. I mean, we are kind of thin.
I'm definitely concerned about our secondary beyond our top two. I feel like we're really top heavy. I mean, Aaron Colvin played 700 snaps last year. That's almost 70% of our snaps Aaron Colvin played, which means that DJ Hayden, or as of now, is going to fill that role. And DJ Hayden, for those of you that don't know, hasn't even been a full-time starter in 3 years. He was the 12th overall pick 4 years ago by Oakland. He's played 43 games in the last 3 years and started 16. He has 3 career INTs, but he's only had 1 in the last 3 years.
Well, has Colvin had an interception ever?
That's what I was going to say. I mean,
Did he get
that's
one
the
last year?
thing, though. I mean, before Ramsey and Boye came in, I didn't think Colvin was all that great.
I agree with Robert 1,000%.
I mean, I don't think DJ Hayden's necessarily going to be as good as Colvin. I think Colvin did good last year, but I feel like it's because of Boye and Ramsey being out there.
I think
and no other reason.
Colvin's good play was because
Colvin's
of that.
had 5 sacks in his career, so he's not like a one-trick pony. He's good against the run.
Colvin's best
rushing the passer.
attribute was that he could tackle in the open field.
Right, and blitz the quarterback.
And blitz the quarterback.
Right.
I don't know if he's a great cover corner, but what concerns me about Hayden, I don't know a lot about him, but what I do know is that he was a first-round draft pick, 12th overall, and this is his 3rd team in like 5 years.
Yeah, no,
so that doesn't speak well when you're on your 3rd team in that little bit of time. But, in terms of starting, like if he's playing nickel for the Jags, he's not going to start because usually they don't start with nickel. They start with that 3rd linebacker. So, again, that can be a little but he might play more snaps. Like Colvin wasn't a starter, but he was insanely valuable to the team.
Right.
So if Hayden can come in and make those open field tackles in the flat, which is where Colvin made his money, made his living, was out there and also blitzing the quarterback, then I agree with Robert. He's gonna feast off the talents of those around him, and I'm fine with that. That's great because we got him a lot cheaper than what Houston paid for Colvin.
He's a good tackler too. I mean, that was one part of his game I didn't realize was as good as it is, but he does have a lot of lower body strength, so he's good at tackling and driving on routes. I mean, he fills in. You're right, fills in that role. Especially with that cover 1 we play, where he's just playing close to the line of scrimmage, covering a tight end or covering a slot receiver, or even a running back out of the backfield. He could give us some value.
I think Hayden's stats are very unimpressive, like you guys said. And I think Colvin's stats were super unimpressive before we had the guys around him. And again, if they stay healthy, you could plug pretty much anybody into. You could whatever Joe into that spot you wanted to. They're going to look better than they would outside that situation. So I think we'll be fine if we're healthy. And again, I think Colvin's going to get exposed in Houston, man. I hope it doesn't happen to him because I like the guy. He did well for us last year. But I think it's going to come out that you play a lot better when you got Boye and Ramsey around you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, but then you look at after DJ Hayden, there's not a lot of experience on the team.
No, there's none.
I mean, our next DBs are Jalen Myrick, Dexter McDougal, Quentin Meeks, D. Delaney. The only player on that I just named who has any experience in the league is Dexter McDougal, and he's jumped around teams and played with the Saints and the Eagles and probably won't make the roster if I'm being completely honest. So after DJ Hayden, we don't have a corner with any NFL experience, which is,
it's scary, man. If
a little
somebody goes down with an injury, dude,
It's concerning, but to me, it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. They invested in Boye. They're going to be investing heavily in Ramsey as early as next year. Do you then continue to invest in depth, or do you then start looking elsewhere for filling needs in other parts of the team? But yeah, I mean, depth is an issue, I think, for every NFL team. But for us in that position, it's just such a contrast with if your starters are healthy, how incredibly good you're going to be there, versus if they're not, how the drop-off is very significant.
And the one thing that kind of makes me feel okay about that is the fact that we're not relying on 30-year-old guys at this point in their career. They're young, and they're super healthy. They're super athletic. They're strong. So, I mean, it would be like a freak injury type of thing. It wouldn't be like I'm just getting old and I've got a lot of miles on my body. Yeah. So, that's kind of a positive.
There's a lot of position groups on the team that you can look at and say if it's not healthy, it's very concerning. Running back, quarterback, linebacker.
Yeah, linebacker's a big one. We've talked about multiple
times.
times.
You're right. It's like that with most teams.
It is. It's just hard. It's just hard to have depth at every position. We have depth, I think, at the most important, which is offensive line and defensive line. The most depth, I should say,
right.
of anywhere on the team. So, well, let me ask you all a question real quick. Does Ronnie Harrison make an impact this year? Safety that we drafted in the 3rd round out of Alabama. What do you think? Could he come in and maybe compete with Church?
I mean, he's definitely getting snaps. I mean, like Jason's mentioned multiple times, there's lots of different guys that play there, right? I mean, he's going to see the ball.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Jared Wilson playing in the playoffs, Peyton Thompson playing in the playoffs. I mean, now you got a guy like Ronnie Harrison, 6'2", 207. I like the guy because I like people that play multiple positions. He was a quarterback in high school in Tallahassee, and he went to Alabama, which is pretty upsetting for our Florida State fans. But he did really well last year. He was the second-team All-SEC pick, tied the team lead with 74 tackles. He had 5 stops behind the line of scrimmage, 3 sacks, 3 interceptions. I mean, we talk about guys not putting up stats, but he put up stats.
Yeah, and he likes to hit.
He navigates traffic well. He's an excellent athlete for his size. He's got really good back pedal. He plays really well in the 2 deep. They played a lot of cover 6 at Alabama, which was their base formation, which is basically what that means is a corner and the strong safety. They split half of the field to quarter and quarter. And then the free safety plays the other half of the field totally by himself. So what it's called is called a quarter half. And then on the cornerback on the side of the free safety is free to play up on the line of scrimmage against the run. So
we need a chalkboard.
I just went cross-eyed. I'm not going to lie.
Just replay that part if you had trouble listening to it a couple times.
But I was going to ask you that because it does have him listed as a free safety on our depth chart, which with his tackling, I thought he would be more of like a strong safety. I mean, is it?
Right. I say all that to say his base formation at Alabama was he dropped in and played a quarter of the field, like a safety would in cover 4.
Okay.
And now he's going to play in a base package, which is a cover 1, whereas a free safety is either going to play over the top the entire play like Gibson does, or he's going to have to come down and play against the run and in traffic the way that Church does. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of fits into our system, but obviously the coaches saw something that they liked about him.
Now, he was critiqued by leading with his head a good bit. Does that concern you with the new rules that came out?
It does. It actually really does, because it seems like, especially with all these meetings coming out from the owners' meetings, that they're putting a big emphasis on that. And he does have that flag about him. He leads with his head. Even when he leads with his shoulder, he goes for the head. So I
like it.
I like it too, but
it's crazy to even have to worry about that.
I
It's
know.
football, dude.
Yeah, but it's the rule changes.
I know
it's
it
the
is.
bad part.
I know it is.
The Church did that to Gronk, and it cost us big time.
Hey,
Yeah.
Thank you,
game.
Players Union.
yeah, it did. And, new rules now, players can get ejected for that. So, how valuable are you if you can't even stay in the game?
But is he good enough to unseat either one of the starters at safety, Church or Gibson? I mean, I think both of those guys had really good years last year. Church surprised me. Like, I didn't know Barry Church existed.
I'm with you.
When they signed him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the first free agent they signed in the offseason last year, and everyone's thinking all these other big names, and Jaguars signed Barry Church. Who? I had a doubt. Had no idea, and he had a great year.
I mean, honestly, I think of Church like I do Hayden right now. Like, I'm like, who is this
No.
guy we signed?
No.
I mean, I know he's probably a little better, but I mean, it's like,
Cowboy fans were sad to see him go.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
That and my thing with Church is that he was consistent. Like when he was out there, he was making his tackles. He was staying on the routes and everything. I mean, he was consistent in that position. When you do have great players around you, that's more than anything that they need on the field to allow people like whether it's Ramsey or Boye or Gibson to be able to kind of go after some of those picks and stuff. You need to know that dude is going to be locked in, and that you don't have to worry about that side of the field when he's over there.
Barry Church graded out 83.2 on 986 snaps. Boye graded out 88. So he was only slightly worse than Boye,
No, he had a
according to
healthy
Pro
year.
Football Focus, on his grade out. And Gibson graded out 81. So, all of our secondary guys grade out really, really high. And the biggest thing is how healthy they stay, like we talked about. Barry Church, 986 snaps. Tayshaun Gibson, 1,013 snaps. Boye, 1,010 snaps. Jalen Ramsey, 993 snaps. So those are heavy numbers. And that's honestly, I don't know how realistic that is to keep up for 2 seasons in a row.
It makes me nervous. I think we could be in a position next year where we beat ourselves versus other teams just because of health.
I mean, the law of averages have got to work against us at some point, and I'd hate for it. I mean, one guy that everybody's failed to mention, though, is Sammy Seamster. Like, I looked at the depth chart. And
You
I was
just
like,
made that name
I
up.
was like, is that fake? I was like, that sounds like a Dr. Seuss character.
I believe I looked into him, and I thought this guy's not going to make the team, and so I decided to leave him
All
off.
right, I
my
was
list.
curious.
Just
I
for
was
the
like,
sake of the name you wanted to bring up.
I was like, I've never heard of the guy. Where'd he come
Please
from?
tell me he can sew.
Who knows? Yeah, I would hope so.
What about guys like, Jalen Myrick, who's the complete opposite of DJ Hayden? He's a small guy. He's the guy that ran the 4.2 at the combine last year. We drafted him in the 6th or 7th round. Didn't see a lot of snaps last year, only 22, but didn't grade out bad on those 22 snaps. Played a lot of special teams. Fast guy, but literally the complete opposite of DJ Hayden, He was a slow, big guy.
I think anybody like that can stick around is worth something in my book. I mean, if you can make it, whether it's practice squad, bouncing back and forth, you keep making rosters and you're there, you got to have something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who knows?
He's got speed.
He's so fast. He's so fast. Like, he's always in perfect position for coverage, but he just can't tackle. Like, I saw a highlight of him blitzing Cardell Jones in college when he was at Minnesota, and he couldn't even bring him down by
Just
himself.
like bounce off people.
He grabbed
so
him
small.
and monkey piggybacked him and like had to wait for his teammate to get
Maybe
there.
that was on the coaches to have that guy. Cardell Jones was a big boy.
I know, but still,
We'll start chanting
tackle.
Rudy after that or something.
I love speed, but if you can't bring down a guy and you can't tackle,
Yeah.
it doesn't really matter at that point in time.
Well, I mean, you got to consider where they would use him. I don't think they're going to put American to blitz the quarterback or even play the
Right.
flats or anything like that. If it comes down to him playing, he's going to be covering a corner that he should be able to tackle.
Yeah, hopefully.
But I think the fact that he, like Joey was saying, lasted that year last year and is still on the team, that bodes well for him. Gives him a year to be coached by NFL coaches, and they can teach him all those techniques. It's not someone I really want to see on the field because unless it's garbage time and we're destroying the other team, which could very well happen a lot this year. But do I want to see him starting a game? Absolutely not. If that happens, then something bad has happened.
Well, also, I mean, we talk about the OTAs, and I know we're not talking about running backs per se, but like Corey Grant, they said today, he came in thick. Like, dude put on some serious muscle in the offseason, and a lot of players do that. So maybe he's bulked up a little bit. And
How tall is he? Did you say 5'10"?
Which guy, Myrick?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty small. I think he's 5'10" or 5'11". He's
Yeah.
5'10", yeah.
So that's a small dude.
yeah.
But, he got speed, and speed makes up for a lot of that.
I mean, 4.28 speed. That's speed.
That is.
Yeah.
That's puts you up there with like track sprinters. Then what about Quentin Meeks? He's a guy that was supposed to be drafted but wasn't, out of Stanford.
Out of Stanford. I think I kind of like that pick. I know, Jason, you said you had some reservations because of playing at Stanford. The opponent's not very good, but I like his size. I think if there's anyone that could possibly come in and compete with Hayden for the nickel, I think it would be him. One, because there's just, like we've already said, there's not a lot of depth. There's not a lot of people to choose from. He's got the size to play nickel, I think, and make those tackles that a nickel corner has to make. So it'll be interesting. I think he makes the team. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, speed's an issue for him, though. I mean, if you get a fast guy lined up with him, I mean, he's going to be struggling there. So
His biggest attribution is going to be press coverage, pressing a guy, just like straight on the line of scrimmage. But if a guy, he showed even at Stanford, if a guy shakes him off the line, he has no makeup speed at all, which is kind of tough in our defense that we run.
I think if I'm going to take a rookie like that, it's going to be D. Delaney. Make it over Meeks. I'm going to take somebody from the U every time, whether he's there for 1 year or not.
That's a good point, actually.
Apparently coaches like him because he's like really smart. Like he's an intelligent guy.
D. Delaney?
Yes. Because he was at the Citadel before Miami.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that school's not easy to get into.
that, and he has some hands on him.
Good hands. He's 14 career college interceptions. That's a lot. I mean, there's something to be said for a nose for the ball. I just feel that way. If you can get your hands on the ball, then I feel like there's something to be said for that, whether it's instincts or we're able to read the quarterback's eyes, things like that.
And with the athleticism on our secondary, I mean, if we could just add another guy that can get that many interceptions, I mean, that's awesome right there.
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
that's that many more people
Especially
that
if all you need
have
to do
to
is, like,
watch
plug a
out
hole.
for. Yeah,
You know, I
exactly.
mean,
The bottom line is these guys got to grow up quick.
Yeah.
I mean, they got to grow
That's
up
true.
really quick because they are the depth. Two of those guys that we're talking about weren't even drafted. So
Yeah.
it's not to say that they can't be good or anything like that because we've seen the contrary to that with a couple guys on receivers. But they need to grow up real quick, and so that we can rely on them. It's an interesting group. I think if you just look at the starters, I feel super confident. I'm interested to see. I think Harrison's going to push. I think he might be pushing Gibson and or Church. I kind of feel more like Gibson though than Church, that he could I don't know, make things interesting at that position.
I definitely feel Gibson's the weak link, just from a mental standpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily play wise, because he's obviously done pretty well, but I just think from a mental standpoint, he definitely could be the one that gets beat out.
I don't know. I like Gibson. I think he's a strong player. I think I'm just going to throw out, I think he ends up having career high interceptions this season coming up. I mean, I think he's going to have another year of, playing with these guys, and I think he's ready to get his name out there too, just like Boye and Ramsey.
Well, I think he's definitely ready for that, but I think
He's
that's part
been
of
in
the
the
problem.
league for so long.
Yeah, but he had a season with 6 interceptions.
Yeah,
I mean,
he made the Pro Bowl that year.
It's not that he doesn't have the talent to do it. I mean, he got hurt at one period of time. I mean, then he signed on with the Jags. I mean, now it could be an excuse, but he did say that, like we talked about, that Bradley, they kind of locked him down a little bit. Kind of got in with Todd Walsh. They got a new system going, and then they're going into the second year with Todd Walsh, same system. I mean, I feel like it could be just a opportunity for him to kind of show out next year.
I always hear the locker room of the Jags is so tight and so perfect. They don't want to bring anybody in that's going to upset the apple cart or anything like that. But if there was a guy that I feel like would do that, it's Gibson. You know, he's kind of outspoken. Robert, you were saying earlier something about the joint practice with the Vikings that they've agreed to, that he didn't love that. He tweeted something about that. He's spoken out before. Not bad things or anything like that, but it just seems if there's someone that might be kind of like, what's going on? If I had to pick someone, I'm not saying it is, but if I had to pick someone, it would be Gibson. And when you have this guy who's younger and cheaper behind you, I don't know. It could be interesting to see what old Harrison does.
Yeah, I mean, he does. He seems like he's the only like slightly soft, slightly whiny guy in the group.
Yeah.
Not saying that he is either, but he's like the only one that even like remotely shows that whatsoever. You
Right.
know what I mean? So, I mean, I agree.
What about the last safety that we haven't talked about, Jared Wilson, who got some snaps last year, played a lot in special team. He played in all but one game in the last 2 years on special teams. So, I mean, he's found his way onto the special teams squad. He's an undrafted free agent out of Michigan. Another big guy, 6'2", 210. Hasn't gotten a lot of snaps to show what he's done, but he did replace Tayshaun Gibson a few times when he was injured. He had a couple of big pass breakups on Martavis Bryant. In the chances he's gotten to play, he hasn't really been that bad. So I've said some things about him probably shouldn't have been on the field, but that's just because I'd never heard of him and he was an undrafted free agent. But he did have a nice interception against Ryan Fitzpatrick in the preseason last year, which kind of helped him get on the team. But a guy like that excite any of you guys?
Not really.
No, I honestly didn't even know he was on the team
Yeah,
until.
I mean, I knew he was on the team, but I don't know enough about him to extend the conversation. Except that if he played well as a reserve, that makes me feel better.
Hey, we need good special teams guys too. I mean, that's important.
Yeah.
What about Don Carey? Is that his name? Don. I'm throwing that out there.
I think he was cut.
He was already,
and I think Peyton Thompson was cut too.
Really?
Yeah, because that's another guy. According to his Wikipedia, he's a free agent.
Yeah, I don't show him on. This is as of today. The depth chart is definitely not on here.
Wow. Thompson got, because he played quite a bit last year.
Especially on special teams. He's another guy that played in all but 2 games in the last 2 years.
Wow, how about that?
I do want to throw this out here as kind of a scheme thing. So, Jason, it's a question to you, kind of off the cuff. But they do have they have players listed as left cornerback versus right cornerback, and they have depth charts for both. I would have to assume that your left cornerback is typically your stronger cornerback because most quarterbacks are right-handed, and they throw that side more.
That is something that they do with specific cornerbacks that like playing on certain sides of the field.
So is that just personal preference?
Right.
Okay.
Some corners like being on certain sides, and that really comes down to your drive step. So when you're backpedaling and then you're breaking up on a receiver, if you're on the right side, more than likely you're going to be breaking off of your right foot. If you're on the left side, you're going to be breaking off of your left foot.
So which way you like to turn and push?
Basically, that's what it comes down to. We've seen, though, just from watching film, it seems like Bouye likes to be on the right side and Ramsey likes to be on the left side. However, against elite receivers, we saw Jalen Ramsey move into the slot a lot against Gronk, Brandon Cooks, and he just kind of moves around all over. But
So it's
some
not set at all. It's just kind of preference, and we're going to go that way.
Yeah, and some depth charts just like to do that, just to kind of, instead of saying cornerback 1, cornerback 2, they say left cornerback, right cornerback.
Gotcha. Cool.
So talking about Ramsey and Bouye and their amazing grade out last year and their passer rating against, and they're pretty clear-cut probably the 2 best tandem in the NFL right now. James was making a statement about how Jalen Ramsey's his favorite player of all time, and we were kind of like, whoa. But I'm going to say, I'll make a statement like that, and I'm going to say Ramsey and Bouye are the 2 best corner tandems of all time.
I'd have to agree because sitting here thinking about it, I can name a single stud, but I can't name a tandem that rings a bell in my history of watching football.
Is it Neon Dion?
Yeah, but Dion
Who
never was
played
paired
Dion,
with anyone
Dion
else.
never had anyone good.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
Dion, of course, or you
Yeah.
got Revis, or I mean, there's tons of good DBs I could name, but not a tandem. So I
Ron
would
Woodson
have to
ever
say.
get?
Here's a list I pulled up from an online list, okay? Number 1, Lester Hayes and Mike Haynes, 1983 Los Angeles Raiders.
Pass.
Pass. Never saw you play. Don't know who you are.
Next.
I was 4.
No
Number-
soup for you.
Number 2, Dick Night Train Lane
Oh, you got
and
Night
Dick
Train in there.
LeBeau, 1962.
The
Detroit
double dicks?
Lions.
It's fair enough because those guys were both absolute studs.
1962 doesn't count.
Oh man.
No die.
So. Can we get one in the last 30 years?
Okay, yes. Number 3, Chris Harris and Aqib Talib.
They were pretty solid.
They were, but I'd rather have
But
Bouye and Ramsey.
I'm
Yeah,
with
yeah,
you,
yeah.
but those are
I would almost
contenders.
argue now Talib and Peters for the Rams are better than Talib and Harris, except for Talib is older now, but he's an elite corner, but he's not in the class of Ramsey.
And I think
I don't-
Peters had a down year last year. I mean, the whole throwing the flag into the stands kind of embodied his whole
He's crazy.
season.
Listen, I think the Los Angeles Rams this year are a powder keg that is going to
Yeah.
explode. If I was a Rams fan, I'd be very nervous about that
Mhm.
team.
Yep.
A lot of names, a lot of talent, but all right, sorry, back to the list.
Plus, Peters and Talib sounds like a 70s like pop band. Can't
Yeah.
wait for them.
Number 4, Ronnie Lott, Eric Wright, 1983
Ooh.
San Francisco 49ers.
Ronnie Lott was
That's
legit.
Lott, though. I mean,
Isn't he more of a safety?
yeah.
That's what I thought, too.
He played all over.
I didn't really watch football back then.
No, he was definitely a safety, but I mean, he played.
Were you
outside.
alive then?
No, I was not.
Well, there you go. That's why.
Hard to watch when you're not
When you
even
don't
born
exist.
yet.
But I've watched the football from when I wasn't alive.
But
I
again,
have
that's
not
really
watched it.
one really strong guy and another one that was pretty good. So no,
Yeah.
keep going.
And the last one, number 5 on the list, Patrick Surtain, Sam Madison, 2000 Miami Dolphins.
No.
Mm.
They were a decent tandem. They
Yeah,
were
they were
pretty
pretty
good.
good.
They were pretty
That's
good.
the first one on the list I would even consider.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Them, and then Talib and Harris. Not because of the ones I've watched, but probably because of the ones I've watched. But I would still take Ramsey and Bouye over at both of those.
Plus, you have to factor in. I mean, like Night Train and that tandem was great, but they didn't throw the football.
Yeah, I was gonna
back
say,
then.
is the forward pass legal back
Yeah,
then?
exactly. I mean, they threw like 10 times a game, so
Right.
I mean, you're going to look a lot better. Yeah. I definitely
Most of their
think they're the
passes
best.
were like rugby throws. Anyway, you know.
Whoa, they threw it. Hopefully somebody can catch it. It happened.
Yeah.
No laces on the football.
Malcolm Butler and Stephen Gilmore were pretty solid too, but not as good as Ramsey and
Malcolm
Bouye.
Butler
But
couldn't even play in the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, not in the same class.
But
Yeah,
He got shipped off to Tennessee, didn't he?
is that where you went?
I think so. I'm pretty sure he did.
Good.
we
Yeah,
still-
I think you're right because I
we-
was happy because I was
We
like,
Yeah.
still need the backstory on that. They've not.
Yes,
come
we
out.
do.
with
I mean, I wanna
Belichick,
hear
he
it.
is not going to tell you.
No, of course he won't.
Yeah.
It'll be in his book 5 years from now.
I mean, he still is a 2-time Super Bowl champion. So I mean, you can't say too much about.
But he's not
About,
in anywhere.
That's like saying Robert Horry is a 6-time NBA
Right,
champion.
right.
He is.
It's a lot different.
He
It's
is.
a lot different. It's a lot different.
But that's impressive. That's impressive.
That
Yeah.
really is. When you look at the list, I mean, they're legit, man.
You know what's crazy to
So
me?
good.
As good as the secondary is on our team, and it is incredibly good, I think on the defense, it's the second best position group.
Yeah.
It's true.
That speaks volumes to our defensive line. But again, I think
They help each other.
They help each other.
Because there was a lot of coverage sacks.
Mhm.
I mean, especially when the Jags would disguise their base cover 1 and move into their cover 2. I mean, that threw off Big Ben almost every time he got sacked. That's
Yeah.
what it was from. It was from them shifting, them showing a cover 1, and all of a sudden them dropping to a cover 2, and they had 4 verticals going down the field, and now they have defenders right in those lanes, and Big Ben's like, well, I'm gonna just take this sack, and he had, and
And at the same time, though, there was probably a
It
few
went both
interceptions that were caused by pass rush.
It went
absolutely.
both ways, and they both complimented each other.
Yeah.
Both groups compliment each other on that fact. Like, hey, we're this good because of this. It's just when you have the best defense, it's what it is.
It's true.
It's great.
It's awesome.
It's a luxury.
Let me go back to something really quick. This is way back. It has really nothing to do with our secondary discussion at all. So I hope we're pretty much anything else to add about that?
I'm good.
I had mentioned earlier when I was going on my Jalen Ramsey rant, my love for him, that he is the best player at his position in the league. And the only time we've ever had that before was Baselli. When I said that, Joey, you kind of twitched a little bit, and I didn't know if you had a thought, if there was someone that you may think that I'm forgetting about.
No, it was Fred Taylor. I think that he was the best player at that position for a couple of the years that he played. Absolutely.
What about R.J. Soward?
He's the best worst pick we ever had, and that's saying something.
No, I mean, I
You think Freddie T was the number one running back in the league?
I think he was a number one talent, absolutely, and I think there were
No,
definitely
that's
years-
not what I'm asking.
No,
You
for
think
sure.
he was the best
I
running
do.
back in the
I think
league.
multiple times he suffered from the small market that we're in, and he should have been the top running back in the league.
I mean, I agree. I agree that he's definitely suffered from the market, and that he's still suffering from it. Honestly, to me, I don't know if I can definitively say Fred Taylor was the best running back in the league. I think there's an argument to be made there, and I think you could say.
I think you can say
Top
the same
three.
thing about Jones-Drew.
Yeah, I was
though,
about to say
too.
about my boy MJD.
Yeah,
he led the league in rushing one year.
And he
Yeah,
had one of the
well-
worst offensive lines ever, possibly.
Which is something that Freddie T never did, was lead the league in rushing. I don't think, did he?
No, not
No.
total yards.
But to me, even as good as Freddie T was, to me, he's not in that. I mean, Baselli, he was the
Of
best
course,
left
yeah.
tackle.
He's
I feel
without a
like-
question. He
Yeah.
was the most dominant player at his position.
Ramsey, I think we all agree right now, without a doubt, he'd be the first corner you would want in the entire league.
I would agree.
I just don't know. That's not to speak against Freddie T. It's to say how dominant Baselli and Ramsey were and are.
I would agree. I would say that those two are probably upper echelon, and then I would say maybe Fred Taylor and Jimmy Smith.
Yeah, I was
would
gonna
be
say- I
like
was
a
gonna say-
second tier of.
Mhm.
I
you
think
can make the argument
Jones-Drew
for it.
was better than Fred Taylor and Jimmy
We'll
Smith.
have to have a whole different
Maurice
discussion.
Jones-Drew was
Look at the
a-
average yards per carry. Look at, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but you can't get caught
The
up
thing
in
about
those kind of
MJD
things.
that he didn't have that breakaway speed. He seems like he always got caught from behind. If he was
yeah,
was out in the
but
open
I mean, he was a volume back. He got so many more carries than Fred Taylor would. I mean, there was years when he was splitting carries with Fred Taylor, and then when he was by himself,
Yeah,
it was
but
just it was run after run after run.
How old were you in 96, 97?
I was a
it's a pup.
wide-eyed 8,
Okay.
7, 8 years old.
Yeah.
But I was a huge Gator fan back then. I mean, I still am a Gator fan, but I watched a lot more. I got more into Gator players back then than I do now. I don't really care where you go to college now, as long as you help the Jaguars.
I mean, I know
for me-
you're all about the footage and
Agreed,
everything.
by the
Go
way.
back and pull some Fred Taylor footage from like the second.
Oh, I was
fourth
a
year
big
they played.
Jag fan back then. I rewatched a lot of those
It's
Jag games,
unbelievable.
and I understand. I love Fred Taylor, but Maurice Jones-Drew, like James was saying, Jalen was his favorite player. Maurice Jones-Drew is my all-time.
And I'm
favorite
not
Jaguar.
knocking MJD. I mean, I
Don't
think he was
hate my hero,
fantastic.
Joey.
Well, they play the same position
But it
and
was
they play it in
completely different
completely
styles.
different.
Absolutely.
Yeah, completely different.
I love thinking about it, but I need Jalen to give me 5 to 6 years on the Jaguars before I can ever
And-
make a statement like that.
and that's a fair point too.
Yeah, I mean,
if he continues like he is for 5 or 6 years, then I mean,
Do you
I
see
need-
him slowing down at all?
No, it's
I
not that.
don't
I
at
need
all.
him
He's
on.
not slowing
I
down.
don't
He's
doubt
going
it,
to
but-
get better.
For me, it's not that. I need him on the Jaguars for 5 to 6 years
Oh.
before he's even in my
They're
my
not
thought
letting him
process.
go.
Yeah.
They're going to back. the
They're not,
truck up
but you
next
never
year for
know
him.
with. I mean,
No.
you never know with another player if they go somewhere else because someone offered more money.
No, they
you,
can't.
do-
That's
you
the
don't
thing.
know
When-
that.
No, here's the thing about that. Other teams can't. They are going to be able to offer him more money than any other team, and they're going to be able to do it first. And so he's going to see that. He's going to sign with the Jags. He's not going anywhere.
I think we need to tease an entire podcast about the best ever current players who are going to be the best ever and pride of the Jaguars. We could talk about that for like 2 hours.
I think we already have in like almost every podcast.
Yeah, pretty
I think it
But I
comes
think,
up
like,
every
if we did
time.
Nothing
Every
but
time.
that. It would be great.
Yeah, it's true. I agree.
To go back to your point, I was young, but I remember almost crying because Randy Moss beat Fred Taylor for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah,
Crying
Yeah,
because I thought he got robbed.
he did.
Small market.
Yeah.
And same,
And Randy
Hall
Moss
of
had
Fame
an
numbers, too.
unbelievable rookie year too, though.
Yeah, he did. He
he
really
did.
did.
I mean, you can't argue against him,
Yeah.
but you got to wonder how Fred Taylor would be seen in the national perspective had he gone to Dallas
Sure.
or Philadelphia
No, you're
or
right.
any of those.
And if he wasn't injured, he's a Hall of Fame running back without the injuries.
Yep.
I don't know. Terrell Owens made it in. I mean, he had injuries.
No,
I
but
mean-
Fred Taylor was. I mean, Fragile Fred was his nickname.
Yeah, I mean,
was
he
hurt
was,
all
he
the
was, but I'm
But
over
again,
this whole like
No,
thought
but he
process.
was-
You have to be in the league for like 8 years before you can be.
No, I mean he was in it long enough.
Considered.
He just missed so many games due to injury.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
true.
like both knees, both hips, shoulders, elbows, everything about him was just always
Dude, that
breaking.
was early on in his career, and then he ended up being one of the most solid players we had. Again, we need to pull up stats on this stuff. That was a moniker that he got early on, and it stuck
We're
with him.
gonna do a debate.
We do.
We're gonna do a debate.
Absolutely need to because this is talking
Freddie
about
T
passion.
versus MJD.
Ooh, I don't know if I want to debate that. I like them both, but I'll take the Freddie T side of that.
Okay, we'll see what happens.
I mean, they were
MJD left.
They were on
I
completely
hate him
different
for it.
teams.
So did Freddie T. He even played with New England.
Maurice Jones-Drew had like Gabbert and Leftwich and players like that, and Fred Taylor had Burnell and Jimmy Smith and Keenan McCardell.
Burnell,
Keenan
Burnell
McCardell
was not
Matt
good.
Cardell.
Mark
Yeah.
Cardell.
yeah.
Burnell was not good though.
He was not.
He was
fantastic.
He was not good. His stats are
What?
terrible.
Dude, he's not terrible.
They were bad.
No, he wasn't.
He was bad.
I think if you put Burnell
Burnell?
on the team that Bortles had the past
I would.
3 years,
Burnell was not bad.
No.
bad.
No, bad's a
He wasn't
strong
like-
word.
I do not think he was
Man, did he
good.
steal your lunch money or something?
He was like probably.
I know you said that thing about us moving.
think-
Robert got food poisoning from Whataburger. I think.
I think Burnell was worse than Bortles.
I agree.
I think he's like an 18-20 when he was playing in the league. The quarterback.
I'm with Robert on
list.
this 100%.
No.
But that's not bad. I mean,
I didn't say it was bad, but
Y'all are
But he's not.
crazy.
But he's not
Nah.
like. It didn't mean anything
I
that
don't
Taylor
know.
had him on the team.
Isn't
He was just
Burnell
a
in
guy.
the Isn't Burnell in the
Pride.
Pride?
Yeah.
because he was
Y'all
one
are
of the first.
crazy,
He
man.
was one of the first
Other way
Jaguars.
around, though.
He's the best
Wow.
quarterback by a mile Jacksonville's ever had.
but I think that's the
can't
other way
believe someone
around
said he's
he had
bad.
because he had one of the best running backs of all time. He had one of the
Oh
best
my
receivers of all
God.
time.
Yeah, I mean, he was
had
not
the best
good.
left tackle of
You
all
remember
time.
Jimmy Smith was nothing before he came here too.
He was pretty good in Dallas.
In Dallas, whatever.
He was
they let
all
him
right,
go.
and McCardell wasn't that good either.
Yeah.
Well,
Burnell's best thing he ever
McCardell
did.
was
McCardell.
not a
Y'all,
good guy.
Burnell's best thing
Yeah.
ever. It was being
Strong
a good
language
placeholder
against
kicker.
Burnell.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's rose-colored
Dang.
lenses here, man. Depending on which color glasses you're looking
I
through.
don't
guess
know,
so.
man. I'm about to pull up Burnell's stats.
Burnell was a great placeholder kicker. That's all he was.
Oh my Lord Jesus, this is crazy.
I know. I don't know what to think right now. I'm like blown away.
I'm,
184 Burnell, 184 touchdowns, 108 interceptions. So that's almost 2-to-1 ratio. 32,000 yards with a career rating of 84.
Yeah, that's
pretty
bad.
good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and how many times a game did he throw? Like 20?
I mean,
Let's see here. I'll tell you.
Because he was
I don't know,
handing
they were
the ball
pretty-
off to Fred Taylor.
They were pretty fun and
he-
gun back then. I mean,
Let's see here. He averaged. I have to do the math on that one.
It's a low number.
Yeah, I can't do that math right now. No, I mean he's throwing 500 times a season.
How many times?
To 2000, 2001, 1999 he threw 440. 1997 he threw 439. 96 he threw 557.
At the same time, though, you have to understand to that point, like the game even then was way different than it is
Yeah,
now. It's
absolutely.
changed
That's true.
so much. So if you could measure his attempts per game to any other quarterback, and they're probably very similar. I mean, I would say Burnell was a good quarterback. You know,
I'm
not
not saying-
great, but
I'm
he
not
was
saying
he was a
bad
good
at
quarterback.
all.
He led the Jaguars to a 13-3 season in the AFC Championship game.
Not to mention he had
No,
almost
actually 14-2 season. Their third loss was in the AFC Championship game. Sorry,
2,500 rushing yards for his career. For a quarterback, it's pretty good.
I never said he was bad.
You agree with Robert?
Yeah, you said you
said
said
that by
I'm with
committee.
Robert.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
I'm with Robert that he's not a great
my main
quarterback.
point was though is that Burnell had nothing to do with Fred Taylor. Nothing.
I agree. I think it's the other way around. I think Burnell benefited from Taylor more than the other.
And Jimmy
yeah,
Smith.
exactly.
I think if you have a quarterback that has an 84 career passer rating, that's going to help your running
I think
game.
it's safe to say they all benefited from each other.
Yeah, fair enough.
Anyway, I don't know how we got on that when I was talking about secondary for the Jaguars in 2018.
That's how we do it around
Yeah,
here.
let's go back 23 years. Why not?
It was all based on your comment that Jalen Ramsey's the greatest Jaguar of all time.
He is.
Yeah, that's true.
No, I didn't say he's the greatest Jaguar. I said he's my favorite Jaguar of all
Well,
time.
you kind of said he's the greatest outside of Baselli.
I said
Of his position.
he's the greatest at his position.
Yeah.
And he's the only one besides Baselli that I think you can ever say of any Jaguar that at this moment or any moment in their career they were the absolute definitive best at their position, and I stand by that.
yeah, that's true. That's fair.
Yeah.
Burnell does not fit that role.
No.
No one ever said that.
I mean,
but
he went to the Pro Bowl a couple times. That means you're top 6.
yeah, I mean Garrard technically went to the Pro Bowl too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Burnell
I mean-
didn't technically go. He got
He
actually
went. Yeah. Okay. So there you go. I mean, yeah, I think that.
Yeah, we're off.
Robert's
for now.
alone on that one. Y'all want to tweet us? That's at Robert.
Yeah,
make sure.
Yeah,
you
don't
remember
tweet
that.
our
Bring it
another
on.
Jags pod on
Yeah.
that.
All right, well, that's going to wrap up another episode of Another Jags Podcast. We appreciate y'all listening. Again, you can find us on Twitter at Another Jags Pod. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Another Jags Podcast. And you can find us on any podcasting network. We're now on Google Play. We're on Stitcher. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on SoundCloud. Pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts, we are up. Thank you again for listening with us, and go Jags.
Go Jags.
Just not Mark Burnell.
Not Mark Burnell. Go Jags.